So I just got off a mastermind call with my coaching clients in the Accountant Success Formula Platinum Mastermind group, and we had a deep conversation about business models, and that's what I wanted to talk about today, is the business model. The traditional business model of the accounting firm, and when you think about business models, there's two parts, right? So you've got a revenue model, you got your revenue model, and then you've also got your expense model, right? And so, you know, and what kicks out of that is, most accountants know, there's your net income. And so in the traditional accounting firm model, the revenue model is driven by billable hours. So if we go to the model and you say, okay, you've got X amount of hours in the week, there's your hours in the week, times whatever your fictitious, and I say fictitious, whatever your chargeable rate is, so call it your charge rate, there's what you think you can make for your total revenue. And that's your revenue model. So your revenue model is driven by the number of hours in the day, and by this fictitious billable hour rate. That's your revenue model. And so in the Accountant Success Formula model, though, we turn it upside down and say, no, let's not look at it that way. Let's look at the model. And by the way, most accounting firms you never realize your charge out rates, because I remember when I was in public practice, there was no way we ever realized the actual billable hours that we actually budgeted for the year. There was always WIP write-offs and partner complaining and discussions about WIP write-offs. Anyways, don't want to go down that route, but let's talk about the model for your practice. So let's talk about the revenue model, like what the model is for an accounting practice. And it's just a different way of looking at it. And I want you to think about this. So let's say, for example, you want to bring in 600,000 of revenue, or you want to bring in 1.2 million. So I'm going to do two options here. So you got, your goal is to make 600K in revenue, or your goal is 1.2 million in revenue. And what we're going to do is walk ourselves out there, because under the traditional model, you would have to take that divided by the number of hours in the day times your fictitious rate, and then times how many staff you're going to need to actually drive that number, and that would drive your business model. But instead, I want you to think of it like this. So if you were taking on, say, personal tax returns and like just low-end stuff, and it was, say, $150 a return, and I know that's totally ridiculous, but anyways, it's $150 a return. To get to 600K, you'd have to do 4,000 tax returns. To do 1.2 million, you'd have to do 8,000 tax returns. And so I often ask, accountants when I'm working with them, I was like, why are you taking on these low-end accounts? Oh, well, it's to fill in capacity. So in other words, to fill in the time, because they're thinking that the revenue model is just the time you need to fill to make the revenue. But instead, I'm like, we'll work it backwards. If you're going to do $150 tax returns, you have to do 4,000 to get to 600K, 8,000 to do 1.2. So instead, they say, okay, well, instead let's double our pricing to $300 a return. Well, you know what's going to happen here is that you're going to half this number. You're still going to have to do 2,000, and over here you're going to have to do 4,000 to get 600 and 1.2 accordingly. So again, you're going to see where the numbers are going to fall out. What if you had, instead, you take $3,000 clients? So you only do clients at $3,000. And so then what you're going to do is you'll have your, I don't want to make sure I'm getting myself in a line here. You got 200, where am I at? I got my numbers. Yeah, 200 and 400. Sorry, I'm trying to double up on 1.2 and 600 at the same time. So if you wanted to build out a practice that's doing 1.2 million, you'd have to have 400 corporate tax returns to get that done versus 200 corporate tax returns at the 600 to get to 600K. You'll start seeing where the numbers change. If instead you do $6,000, now we're looking at 200 and 100. Now the numbers are starting to look a little better. Imagine you're a sole practitioner. You only take 100 corporate year ends. Minimum is $6,000. You'd only need 100 corps to get your 600,000. And so this is where the power comes in when you start looking at the modeling from this perspective instead of the billable hour rate. If you took clients at a $12,000 minimum, you would only need 100 over here to get to 1.2 million and 50 over here to get to 600,000. So I like to turn it on its head and say how many clients at what price point you need to get to that revenue model. And then from there, what do you need for resources and staffing to support that? And so as a sole practitioner, if you think about this, if you're trying to get it to 600K and you get your minimum to 12 grand and you take on 50 clients, how much work would you really have to do 50 year ends and 50 client interactions? That's like 100 personal tax returns and 50 corps. Like, I mean, that's totally easily doable. And then you think about what do you need for resources? Very little to get that. Same thing with over here, the 1.2 million, you're doubling it to 100. And I call this the Dream 100 in the Accountant Success Formula model. 1.2 million, 100 clients, 12 grand, all day long. Like you would be netting, and I've modeled this out, you should be able to net about 800,000 through this 1.2 million, especially when you're using the Accountant Success Formula model. So the key here is, how are you modeling out your business? How are you modeling out your accounting practice? Are you doing the billable hour model? If so, I highly recommend you look at this instead and say, okay, how do we build the firm? How do we build your business so that it's, let's pick the revenue number we want and let's pick the number of clients at the minimum price point to get to that. Now, in the Accountant Success Formula, I show you how to easily close clients at this through a subscription-based model. So it's a lot easier than it looks. It may look like I remember when I was first doing my accounting practice, the thought of getting a $12,000 a year notice to reader or annual simple tax return would be like, that's crazy. I could never do that. My clients are doing it all the time, and this is an incredible model. It'll actually give you the time and freedom that you deserve and the money you deserve. So there you go, modeling your business. How are you modeling your accounting practice? If you want to learn a little bit more about this, the Accountant Success Formula model coaching program, reach out, talk to me, and I would love to have a chat. Anyways, I'm Eric Solback, and wherever you're watching this, please scroll down, leave a comment for me, and stay tuned for more success tips to come.